causes is making electrical outages commonplace throughout the United States. According to recent government data, the number and length of power outages has grown dramatically since the start of the 21st century. Underfunded utility grids, fossil fuel-fired power plants, and increasing temperatures are wreaking havoc across America, with the average utility customer experiencing 8 hours of outage per year. And in low-income communities where local health centers serve the most vulnerable, these disruptions can be a matter of life and death. Federally qualified health centers and other local clinics provide primary and preventive care to patients of all ages in underserved and rural areas. All patients are accepted regardless of their ability to pay or their health insurance status. These facilities are not just healthcare providers, they are lifelines for patients who need prescription drugs, and they serve as first responders in area disasters. But because they often do not have backup power, the most vulnerable populations can be in trouble when the power goes out. Power outages mean electric medical equipment is stalled and refrigerated medicines can go bad. And yes, patients actually can die as a result. Federally qualified health centers need an accessible, low-cost, resilient electricity solution that does not rely on fossil fuels. I am proud to announce a commitment by Collective Energy to help ensure that the most vulnerable among us do not unduly suffer or die as a result of a power outage. Together with their partners, they will install solar generation systems and battery storage at federally qualified health centers, a system that will prevent financial loss and reduce energy costs for these clinics and enable them to serve their communities better. This work will begin in regions most vulnerable to planned and disaster-induced power outages and areas that are disproportionately burdened by chronic disease, racial and ethnic health inequities, and poverty. By developing financing mechanisms and an educational program, they will support the widespread adoption of solar and storage technology throughout the sector. Installing solar systems at federally qualified health centers can serve as a model for enabling energy cost savings, preventing healthcare disruptions, offsetting carbon emissions, and ensuring that everyone has access to health services even when the power goes out. Most importantly, this will improve and save lives, and it can be replicated in low-income communities everywhere.
Please welcome to the stage Tom Rivett-Carnac, founding partner of Global Optimism.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this session on the climate crisis we're already in. This session could hardly be more important at this moment. If you think about the summer we've just had, record-breaking heat waves in 3 continents on the same day, right now a third of Pakistan underwater. The climate crisis has reached a point where, yes, we need to mitigate urgently, more urgently than ever, but we also need to focus on adaptation, to protect the most vulnerable, to integrate climate justice, to protect our infrastructure and our agriculture. We have, over the next 90 minutes, some fantastic panels with some remarkable speakers. So delighted you're here, and please stay with us for the next 90 minutes. But before we get into it, we've got one more commitment to action. So please can I welcome to the stage Zach Rosenberg, co-founder and CEO of SBP.
Years after a disaster, too many American citizens face an abyss of uncertainty as they seek to rebuild their homes and their lives. And this is something that is especially true for low-income and minority communities who for so long have endured structured racism and have been closeted into more environmentally dangerous areas. Besides the meager and hard-to-receive FEMA funds, and besides the support of nonprofit organizations, under and uninsured citizens faced a delay of no less than 2.5 years until the HUD funds start to arrive. Like it would for any of us, this uncertainty can lead people to be pushed beyond their breaking point. As a country, we can do better. SBP is implementing a new and transformative impact investment solution to fill a gap in the disaster recovery ecosystem. SBP has created a Recovery Acceleration Fund, a RAF, to reduce the amount of time it takes for financial support to reach under-resourced survivors seeking to repair their homes. The RAF will serve as a scalable model for a bridge loan to assist the most vulnerable families by bringing them home sooner, ensuring financial stability by restoring their home's hard-won equity and reducing the stress and trauma associated with disaster displacement. SBP is launching a pilot to rebuild 150 homes over the next 18 months and will scale this program to reach at least 1,000 homeowners over the next 3 years. This model, which will pay a 4% return to investors, will become the go-to model that states and cities use to base their HUD CDBG action plans on. And it will ensure that low-income and vulnerable homeowners start being served within months rather than years. Please join us. Thank you.
Fabulous. Congratulations, Zach, and thank you for that. Right now, in a moment, you're going to hear a conversation with Governor Newsom, fresh from signing 40 climate-related bills into law. But first, I would like to introduce a remarkable leader who's also going to make a commitment and then interview Governor Newsom. So if I could welcome to the stage Jacqueline Novogratz, CEO of the Acumen Fund, and also Amanda Noose, Senior Vice President of Corporate Responsibility at Target and President of the Target Foundation.
Thanks, Tom, and thanks, CGI, for coming back. It's so exciting. I'm actually talking about a commitment we made last year to give just a quick update. A year ago, Acumen made a commitment for $5 million which has been initially supported by the Target Foundation, really to accelerate, invest in, and create an ecosystem of green growth and circular economy models that are very specifically focused in India on some of the most vulnerable workers in the nation that are disproportionately impacted by climate crisis. As Tom said, adaptation is something we absolutely need to focus on. Take, for instance, the 4 million waste pickers across India, all working in the informal sector, highly dangerous conditions, impacted disproportionately by climate, whether it's through their houses being washed away in floods, the toxic fumes that they are consuming while they work on the trash piles, and nonetheless, by taking recyclable plastics and other elements out of the landfill, they're actually contributing to fighting climate change. The good news is that there's a new generation of entrepreneurs that are looking at these circular economy models, looking at regeneration, and trying to find ways to make business work in ways that put the dignity of some of our poorest citizens at the center. They're not that investable. And so what we're doing with Target support is building a series of accelerators where we're identifying the best models, accompanying those entrepreneurs and building capabilities so that we can build a pipeline where we will then use our patient capital, invest, and hopefully help build the next generation of business models and role models for the kind of new companies that this world needs, that puts the climate, gender, the dignity of work all at the center. Do you want to?
We're only halfway there. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jacqueline, and it's a pleasure to be here. Through the Target Foundation, we envision a world where every family and every community has the means to really create and design the joy in their own life. And what we love about this partnership is it really fits nicely into our strategy. We have a long-standing philanthropic commitment at Target. It dates back to more than 100 years. And since 1946, we have been donating 5% of our profits to the communities, which today equals millions of dollars. What really resonated with us on this particular project is it aligns with our sustainability strategy, which is to co-create an equitable and regenerative future. And what we want to do is put our philanthropic dollars to work to really bridge the market gap on ideas that really will be at that intersection of profit, climate impact, and people impact. And in this particular initiative that Jacqueline said, we are so proud to partner with you. Jacqueline and Acumen has a long history of really thinking through it in terms of localized, community-driven programming that really allows them to work with experts on the ground to really unlock solutions driven by community. And the Green Growth Initiative, led by their team in India, really is at that intersection of, again, employment that's safe, but also that has a positive impact on people and the planet. So I just want to thank you for this partnership and just share, that it is really an example of us, again, continuing to partner in new ways with a shared mission and a shared value on how we can unlock a more sustainable future for all of us. So thank you so much for Acumen and for Jacqueline for this partnership.
Thank you.
Yes, appreciate that.
So I talked about adaptation, and it's now my great good fortune to be able to welcome to the stage the governor of California, the 5th largest economy in the world, who has all kinds of climate issues and yet truly has stood through action for not just mitigation, but for adaptation. And we get to talk about it. So please welcome Governor Gavin Newsom.
Music. I like it. How is everybody?
I think there are a lot of people here happy to see you.
It's a lot of very angry people. Yeah, I'd be angry too in this world. All right, let's start.
Well, you're acting.
We're acting.
Which is
That's
very
right.
cool. So let's just start, with everything that you've been doing and putting it into context, because we talk about California, but you really have had it all, from wildfires to the snow melting to water fights, the whole deal.
We're the tip of the spear. If you don't believe in, climate science, you have to believe your own eyes. Places, traditions, lifestyles being radically changed in real time. Just think about it in the state of California, just the last few years, 3 towns have been wiped off the map. Greenville, Grizzly Flats, you recall a few years ago, Paradise. The extreme heat, extreme weather, extreme drought. The wets are getting a lot wetter, not just the dry is getting drier, and the hot's a lot hotter. And so we are quite literally the tip of the spear for this new reality. And as a consequence, we have to disabuse ourselves with our old policies and projections, and we have radically reorganized our thinking, and we've taken our ambition, and now we're manifesting an action that is world-beating. What I mean by that is we have not just set forth the most audacious goals, we've backed up those goals with regulation and laws. There's no jurisdiction anywhere in the world that has set now more ambition, backed up by not just policy and a regulatory framework, but by a record-breaking $54 billion we put up in this year's budget to fast track our transition to low carbon green growth. So we're really excited about the future despite this stress.
It's truly awe-inspiring, and thank you from everyone. You talked, though, about resilient communities and protecting the most vulnerable. In specifics, it would be great to hear some of the things you're doing at a conference where we too often, at a world where we too often focus on mitigation alone.
Yeah, look, I think it's that end. It's mitigation. You got to deal with the cards that are dealt, and we've got to actually address the issue. We've got to move our economy and move it off. Look, let me back up. So we've set the goals. These are familiar goals. 2045 carbon neutrality. We were the first jurisdiction in the United States, I think one, if not the only one in the world, to have codified an executive order I put out 2 years ago that says we will not sell traditional vehicles. By 2035, all the vehicles sold in the state of California will be alternative fuel. By the way, put that in perspective. 40 million people live in the state of California. It's the 5th largest economy in the world. But what makes California unique, and some of you may vaguely recall this, is California was established a federal waiver in 1967. Then Governor Ronald Reagan established a waiver from the federal rules and regulations that allows California to do more than any other state in the nation as it relates to tailpipe emissions. 17 states follow California's lead. So when California moves, it moves the national market, which in turn has an impact globally. So just that single act will have a profound impact globally in terms of our transition, particularly on, for us, the number one issue related to the environment. It goes deeply to the issue of equity, goes to the issues of mitigation and adaptation, and that is what happens, the tailpipe. 41% of our emissions in California, 41% come from the tailpipe. So if you're gonna get serious about greenhouse gas emissions, you've gotta get serious about converting your fleet. We already have 16% of all the automobiles in the state of California are electric vehicles already, 16%. Wow. Roughly half the nation's electric vehicles. And put it in perspective, the Biden administration, to their credit, they deserve tremendous credit. But they just announced for California in their new EV package, it was significant, but $58.6 million, $58.6 million for electric vehicle infrastructure. We just passed a $10 billion budget at the state level. So it gives you a sense of how serious we are about moving this transition. Now, that said, we're dealing with a mega drought over the western United States, 1,200-year mega drought. 7 of the last 10 years, we've been in extreme drought. That has an impact across the spectrum, not just economically, not just from a health and safety as it relates to safe drinking water, as it relates to our economic climate, particularly as an agricultural state, but also impacts our energy grid. Mega drought impacts megawatts. We just went through an energy crisis this month, a few weeks ago, the likes of which we couldn't even have imagined 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, we threw out the old projections and we came up with these crazy projections that we didn't think we'd see in our lifetime. 18 months later, 10 days of flex alerts, record-breaking utilization on our grid, went right up to the edge of breaking our grid, but it didn't. This transition worked, and you know what worked? Batteries. The largest power plant in the state of California is batteries. The largest installed battery storage in the world is in the state of California. We were 200 megawatts 2.5 years ago, just shy of 4,000 today and just winding up. This low carbon green growth transition was stress test in an extraordinary way with a 10-day heat dome where we had 125 degree temperatures in the state of California, 125 degrees in September. But we were able to not only keep the lights on, but to keep our wits and our commitment to now accelerate the transition. Deal with the mitigation, yes. Adapt, sure, to this extreme new reality, and that goes to what we're doing on drought and our water portfolio strategy, $8 billion we put up. It goes to wildfire resilience and forest management, vegetation management, and suppression strategies and technologies. And it goes to this. We became the first jurisdiction that we know of in the country, maybe the world, that's coming out with a heat index. We'll actually score like we do a Category 4 hurricane, the heat in the state. We backed it up with $865 million because we recognize the health and safety consequences and how we need to provide more cooling centers and weatherization and deal with urban heat domes at the same time. So it's a smash mouth focus on the immediate, medium, and long term, but we are as committed and more resolved than we've ever been to accelerate this transition. And with all due respect to those conservative governors out there, Greg Abbott and others, They're as dumb as they want to be, and they're just doubling down on stupid, and we will not follow their path. We're going in a completely different direction.
Well, to that point, you said...
Should be more political. I am on
You're
the
doing a
ballot
good
this
job.
November. Be careful. Yeah.
Well, to that point, though, you've said that California is America fast forward, and that the scientists said that this was all going to happen by 2040, and here we are. What is the message to any governors that will listen, and frankly, to the rest of the world?
I mean, it's really interesting. California has socialized a consciousness in this space. And California's not one big blue state. If you look at that state, if you looked at the map of California, it's 2/3 deeply red. 26 of our 58 counties went for Donald Trump overwhelmingly. You have a coastal concentration of population that, quote unquote, makes it blue. But there's a consciousness throughout California of these new realities. Again, even if you don't believe in the science, your thermometer is not a Republican thermometer. Yours is not a Democratic thermometer. There's certain realities, lived realities, experiences. We all love our kids, and they're choking up as we're all heating up. And all of us, I think, are starting to understand the consequences, the severity of being in denial. Now it's no longer even denial. I think the real opposition is delay. But there's resolve now, and there's a deep sense of fear that comes with the loss. And when I talk about lifestyles and traditions, folks that wanted to go back with their kids or grandkids to do what they did with their grandparents, or, their loved ones go to Yosemite this year, 2 occasions, we had to shut it down. All of a sudden now it's coming home in a deeper and more profound way. But one thing that's also come home is there's no longer debate about where the puck is going. There's no longer debate about this or that. We have 6 times more clean energy jobs than we do fossil fuel jobs already in California. 200 headquartered EV companies in the state of California, 43 that are in manufacturing. It's one of our fastest, largest exports. We want to dominate in this next global industry. This is about not just electric power, it's also about economic power.
And is that the message?
That's the message.
We're out of time, unfortunately, so I'm not even allowed to ask you one other question.
No, we're done.
We're done. But I would love to just... No, I can't. I won't.
Break the rules.
Well, you're so effective at just hammering change through. And you do have a state that's red-blue. And are there messages that pull people together? Is it based on fear? Is it based on possibility? If you could do it in negative 1 minute, it would really help me. But how do we think about that at this time of such division?
I'll be candid with you. It just was. And thank you for mentioning it. I just signed 40 climate bills. But but that's not even impressive. What is impressive in the negative sense is that I still am signing so many climate bills. It's California, after all. These entrenched interests, we may be dominated by Democrats, but many of us are wholly owned subsidiaries of the fossil fuel industry. I mean, they play hard. They just filed, we did a setback bill, 3,200-foot setback bill for health and safety. They just filed a referendum yesterday, big oil. These guys aren't going away. So there's a commitment here, not a passing interest. We say about life in every way, shape, or form, the difference between success and failure is those that are committed versus those that are interested. Interested people find excuses. Committed people find ways of getting things done. I had to, and I'll end on this, and forgive the language, I had to jam my own Democratic legislature in the last few weeks of our session to get these 4 critical of the 40 climate bills done. Had I not done that, all those special interests would have prevailed again to deny and delay. So I don't want to overstate how challenging this is, but nor do I want to understate the significance and severity of this moment. We have to meet this moment head on, and we owe it to our kids and grandkids. And I believe, final words, in the power of emulation. Once a mind is stretched, it never goes back to original form. That power of example, and California wants to lead. We want to be that example for the rest of the world.
Wow.
Thank you guys very, very much.
Thank you. In a time of too much talk,